Hello and welcome to the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. I'm Amanda Butland, your host and intuitive life coach.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Embrace Balance Discover Joy podcast. Today, my special guest is Terry Buckley of Take the Helm Coaching. Terry, thank you for being with me today.
Hi, Amanda. It is really great to be here. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. I'm so excited to have you on. And before we start, I always like to start out with my icebreaker question. Would you mind sharing with us what activity or hobby brings you the most joy and why?
All right. So I had an activity and hobby that I did for several years. Let's see, 13, 14 years. And I was a youth soccer coach. And I coached other sports too, but that was the one consistent. And it really, I will say that I just coached my last game 2 weeks ago. But that brought me so much joy. And there were times I would be so tired and like I'd have a soccer practice or the weather would be horrible or cold or rainy. And like, oh, I just don't, maybe I should cancel because I was able to. And often I did not. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity because truly it brought me so much. I was so filled up by watching these young, any age. I started with 8-year-olds, 6-year-olds, all the way up to 14, and just watching them grow and develop and have fun. And even when the weather was bad, get muddy. Like our first practice this season was sopping wet. And I thought for sure that the league would cancel my practice and they didn't. So I just went with it. And I'm showing the girls how to head the ball. And I literally was supposed to go to a meeting afterwards. And I headed the ball and I was splattered with mud. But just things like that, like finding the fun in even the most unusual places really filled me up. And I always went home from practice just completely like fun. It's just fun. It brought me joy to watch the youth experience a different pushing comfort zones, that kind of stuff. It was super fun. So
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, always, whenever you're providing service to others, especially kids, how fun is that? And just the just watching children, right, in doing an activity that's so much fun for them and just having that joy sort of like just bleed into you and just you
Yeah.
absorb all of that. So much fun. Awesome. I love it.
Thank you. It was thank you for bringing that back to my mind. It really lifts my spirits just even
Yeah.
being here and thinking about that and the
Uh,
many years I had to experience that. So I'm looking for the new thing, right? To keep going with that. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're here to talk about coaching. I know you're a coach, and I would love for you to maybe share with us your coaching journey. How did you get to where you are today?
Hmm. So often it's our trials, right, Amanda?
Hmm.
So I'll share a story. It was about 2019, so it was longer, 6 years ago. And it was in the spring. And in the doctor's office so just background for people that don't, of course, don't know me. I'm so blessed to have 4 children. And I had my 4 children. And as a mother, you just want them to be happy and healthy and really experience the fullness of life, right? So about 2019 in the spring, we're in a doctor's office, the fourth doctor at that point. And she comes out and she says that she expects a full recovery for my daughter, who at the time was 14 years old. And I was angry. I was confused. I didn't understand because there was no cyst at the time. She just wasn't well and was really not well, like not able to walk and not able to get out of bed. And I was just so confused and angry and mad. And so that happens. And so then we started this journey of like trying to find the fix, trying to find what would fix her. Like there's got to be something that would fix her because it literally happened like a light switch went off. So the fast forward now a year and a half, and it's August. And I walk into her room. I kind of take a deep breath and I go into her room. It's really dark, and I'm holding her, and I'm like, "It's okay. We're gonna figure this out. We'll figure out the school thing again. We did it last year. We can figure it out again." And my heart just, I was trying to be real strong there. And I gave her a big hug and closed the door and left her in that dark void of a room. I remember going downstairs to my deck. It's August and it's just beautiful out. I mean, blue sky in New England, birds, puffy white clouds. We have a pool that's just like glistening in the sun. And everything around me is vibrating with this life. And I just left this void that her whole life was this little dark room. And I just remember falling to my knees and being like, what can I do? So grateful because where I met you was in the program that I had started, which was personal development, Paul and Stacy Martino in relationship development. And we had a Q&A that call that day and a Q&A call that day. And I remember sitting on the swing on the deck and picking up the phone and raising my hand and just being like, I was so beyond, I guess, hope in that moment. Like I was really brought to my knees. And doing the work, I had learned a lot already in that first year, and I continued in the study. In doing that work, that first year, I remember holding up a sign that they asked us, what did our year give us? And I was like, it was serenity. And I did it the next year, and it was love. And that third year, it was joy. I went from serenity to love to joy to life that was full of happiness and peace, and nothing had changed, Amanda. My daughter was still sick. My life was still like that, but I didn't have to live like that. It's hard to explain, but you see people all the time rise above their circumstance, situation, condition. And Paul and Stacy were able to do that with me, with the tribe, with you as my accountability buddy at one point. And I was able to rise above my condition and create an even greater, fuller life. And that started my journey on like everybody should be able to live a life they love, regardless. And we can't always control what's around us. And that really anchored that in for me. And that became my passion now. Like that's what I want to do. So I worked with Stacy and Paul a little bit. Like she was a great mentor and trainer. And I just was like, this is what I want to do. And that was what kind of got me on the ball rolling. I feel there was always something calling me to that. And I have a couple other stories back in my past when I was in the Navy that I'm like, oh, that was like whispering then and whispering then. There were different times, but it was really when I was brought to my knees and I didn't know a way out, that a mentor was able to show me a way to live. And what's really amazing, Amanda, is I started my business, I started this work, and my daughter is better. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. I mean, we can't always control how, but we can hold on to what we would love, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of this beautiful manifestation process that I've experienced too, which I'm just really grateful again for the work that we were able to do when I first started on this journey. So thanks for asking that question. It's been a powerful journey, to say the least.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So powerful that you were able to shift. And I love sort of maybe even the order of events, right? It wasn't that you waited for it to heal and then everything got better, but you healed everything, within your life, and then she got better. And sort of like you mentioned, the manifestation, like how amazing is that you were able to shift your life, your family's life, and then she healed and she got better after you were able to make all those changes. So thank you so much for sharing that amazing, powerful work that you did to get to where you are today. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about your coaching practice, because now that you've sort of gone through those trials and tribulations, and now you are where you are today, and now to be able to give that back to others, I would love if you wouldn't mind sharing, sort of, and you mentioned your passion, but Brett, what is it that you're focused on helping people with?
So, I like to say that I definitely stand on the shoulders of giants. So what I did was with my coaching journey. So that was kind of that turning point for me. Mm-hmm. And like I said, there were always little whispers that had happened looking back on it. It's like, oh, that's what that was nudging me to do all along. Like even coaching the youth soccer, how much joy that gave me, right? And it's the same thing because I'm helping them get results. I'm helping them get results, feeling like a team, getting the ball in the goal. Like, how do you score that? And whatever condition they come to me in. So I know there was always a nudge. So what happens is I find when the student is ready, the teacher appears. You've heard that phrase, I'm sure. When I found Paul and Stacy Martino, I was fine. Life I thought was great. And then literally things started happening that were outside of my control. And I was introduced to them and their brilliance. And I just truly, a big piece of my heart belongs to them for what they turned me on to. Well, then I went to their mentor, who was Tony Robbins, when I was like, now this is what I want to do. So I want to see this guy, how he gets results. So I'm still working with some programs with him. So I trained under him, not as a coach, but as a student, as a client, being coached. And then I found Mary Morrissey, again, standing on the shoulders of giants. And she stands on Bob Proctor and she stands hands-on Wayne Dyer. I mean, she was their peers, Bob Proctor, Wayne Dyer, and she created a program. So I got coached by her. And so by looking at these three really amazing, and I also did because of the background, the story, a health and nutrition coaching certification with Carrie Glassman. So I have all these different programs that are in my, like, that I was exposed to as a customer client. And then Mary Morrissey offered this opportunity to be certified with her program. And what's beautiful about it, it is about the power within us. So this is what my program is based on. There's a power within each and every one of us. And I believe everybody, regardless of the situation, and these circumstances and situations become the small frying pan. She tells a story about that, but there's a small frying pan that we're living in. And that's the condition. And yet we're so much greater than that. So how do you see outside of that? And what she's done is she's codified it, just like, Paul and Stacey have tools and beautiful things, and Mary also has codified it. So being certified in her program, I get to use this codified system that peels back and introduces people to the different tool sets, if you will, or tools that they can add to their toolbox, and then tap into that power and pull forth this greater experience of their life that they get to have. And so there's many ways that I'll do this with someone. There's a vision workshop I offer, and I'll do that with groups I'll do it to companies, business, for HRs, like I want some personal development and we'll do that. Or I'll do it at a chamber of commerce, or I'll do that to a mom's group or whatever group desires that. And that is, my last client explained that, just like, that's like the little skim coat of the icing, it was like, it got me moving, which is great. And then I also offer programs. So you can just come to a vision workshop and it gets you moving, or it might provide the next action step, or you can then enroll in a program. And I have different levels of program that I can invite people into. But the idea is that then you get to have the cake. And then if you go further on, you get to go the recipe of it, right? And just peel back and get deeper into the study. But yeah, so most of that has all been codified by Mary Morrissey, and I get to present this and work with people individually and also with group coaching as well. So that's kind of the structure of what I get to do. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I love the analogy that you mentioned about the frying pan, right?
Uh,
About, how that's sort of what we can see of, what our life is like, and how do you get to see beyond that?
mm,
Because, I think a lot of times people are living their lives, they're only seeing sort of what's in their immediate vicinity. They're only able to see sort of what's going on in their physical world around them, and not realizing maybe like the greater potential that exists out there for them. And I like what you said about the vision workshops, where I'm assuming you're helping them sort of create a vision or see a vision for themselves that's beyond what they're currently seeing in that frying pan, right? Is that sort of like the idea? You want to talk about that a
100%.
little
Thank
bit
you.
more?
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. 100% what that is, because what the process, okay, so there's two things. There's like the two signals for growth that we get in our lives. And my story talks about a discontent. Like this was an unwanted experience. The other signal you get is a longing. Like and by the way, what's interesting is I had the whispers of the longing before I had the discontent. So, we can answer either signal to growth. But then the question is, well, what does that growth look like? So, okay, I'm getting something. There's an unwanted experience. I have a longing for more. And I share a story about a longing of like, there was one point where I was cleaning up the kitchen after the morning and I was emptying the coffee filter. We have a reusable coffee filter. I was like, God, if I have to clean this coffee filter one more time, it's going to like make me explode. I clean the coffee filter all the time. It doesn't make me explode anymore. But the thing at that time was there was just this, I had a longing for something else. So I was becoming discontent with standard routine things that I did. So you have this signal for growth. Then to tap into what is that step? What is that growth? And Paul and Stacey referred to your eyes. Do you remember they were talking about the yellow brick road and what is your eyes? And when I signed up for that, when my life was kind of, like I said, just cleaning coffee filter was the discontent. There was no other really unwanted experience. When I signed up, it was because I didn't know what my eyes looked like.
Mhm.
And that's what this workshop helps people identify. And what's really interesting, you mentioned like the limits of the frying pan. It's like being in the forest and just seeing the trees. You don't even know where Oz is or what it could possibly look like. So to invite people into a process that they can actually, we call it the Dream Builder program. My 12-week program is the Dream Builder program. And it starts with the vision workshop, or you can come straight to the program and I unfold this in the beginning weeks. But to how do you tap into what you would truly love? And that's a powerful question. What would I love? And one of my last clients that just graduated, she's like, she felt bad about signing up because she's like, I don't know what I want. I was like, that's why you sign up. What would you love? And in 12 weeks, she was able to, she's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So really, so many times we get into our frying pan, into the woods, and we're just navigating. You're navigating, and you're looking for the next right step that keeps you safe, that keeps you moving towards a direction. But where are you going?
Mm.
And the power of the vision workshop is that, and this is why the mentor, like what you're doing, and I love what you're doing as a coach, that we get to hold on to their dream for them when it seems impossible. Because
Mm.
if you knew how to get it, you wouldn't need a coach, right? If you knew what you wanted, would you need a coach? Like if I know that I want to go to the food store and buy broccoli, I know how to get to the food store, I know how to buy broccoli. And I know I want broccoli with dinner. But it's the what do I want to do in 3 years from now? What do I
Mm.
want my life to be? What would I love? And we have results in 4 areas that I work with. And Tony Robbins will break it up into more areas, but Mary Morrissey's program's codified for 4 areas. You're going to have results no matter what you do every part of your day. You're going to have results in health and well-being. You're going to have results in vocation. Oh, sorry, more importantly, relationships, and then vocation, and then in time and money freedom. So we're living in these results. And what would you love? That's like that power question. And
Mm.
when I went and met Stacy and Paul Martino, I didn't know what I would love. I didn't know. So that's a powerful question. And I've discovered it, obviously. And I'm
Yeah.
continuing to grow that. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I love that because you're right. Oftentimes people are, they're stuck in there every day. They don't really know what they're doing, right? Like striving for what is that big goal? Sometimes it's and sometimes it's sort of like I love the the sort of the typical, right? Like married, house, 2.5 kids, right? It is that like that I think for a lot of people that is the goal, right? A good job, marriage, house, and 2.5 kids. And so
fun about that half kid thing. Gotta fill that half kid out. I love that.
that's
No, for sure.
that's the thing. You hear that, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like
Yeah.
that's the American dream, right? And then so you think about, is that really the thing? Like is that really what everybody desires? Like I'm not sure about that. Because sometimes people achieve that and then they're like, well, why am I not happy? Right? That's the thing that you hear a lot. I think a lot of coaches hear that. I've achieved this and I'm not happy.
Mm.
So I love what you do around, finding what it is that people actually love. What is it that they actually have a love for and a passion for? Because they might have achieved that what we call the American dream, but it doesn't result in happiness. Um,
Oh, that's beautiful, Amanda. If you remember, and Paul and Stacey also teach, Tony Robbins teaches the 6 human needs. And the
mm,
ones for happiness are growth and contribution. So we're going to meet all the human needs of significance, certainty, uncertainty, love, and connection. But the happiness comes from growth and contribution. And that brings me to the point that my coaching, and I think everybody as coaches, we're tapped into is that we are constantly, as human beings, becoming, and we're constantly called to grow. In fact, anything living, we're breathing, but anything living, and it reminds me of this beautiful flower. I have a picture of it. It's growing between, it's a concrete pillar in my house and patio, and there's a flower growing right through there. And it's beautiful because everything is called to grow. And it's through our growth and contribution that we actually find the happiness.
mm,
And I used to do this thing where when I was in the Navy, I hurt my knees and I couldn't run, and you had to run for like an hour. I was like, well, I had to go to the pool for an hour. So I used to try to keep track of the laps. And I was like, how do you keep track of so many laps? And I'm not a swimmer. I mean, I swam in open water because that's where I grew up, but I wasn't like a swimmer with lap training. So I'd swim and I would go through each year of my life. Okay, when I was one, when I was two, and I was at the time 20 years old. So I could get up to 20 with all the history, right? My story. And then I would go beyond. And when I graduated, I was in the Navy. Then I would be mom. And if I was mom, when would that happen? I like make up my story. And
Mm.
I got to, I think it was 33 and a half laps, kind of like that half child. And that was the end of my swim. And that was as far as my life got. And I got married and I had kids at 33. And no, but I kept living that life that I thought I would love, and I did. But there was more. We're always called to grow. So
Mm.
I thank you for bringing that point up. And how do you find happiness? It's through that continuously looking for that emerald city, the us, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that that's what you do, that you help people identify what this is. Because I think a lot of people do. They achieve these things and then they feel stuck because they're like, well, I should be happy now and I'm not feeling happy. And what is it that I want now? And how can I help? How can I find somebody to help me find that direction? Because, you could sit there and stew for a while and I don't know if it, without a process like what you provide, right? A process to identify what that thing is. It's really hard for some people to just sit there and think about, what is it that I really want? Because and I find a lot of times when clients do seek out coaching, it is because they do feel stuck. They feel like there's something missing in their lives and they can't put their finger on what that is, right? That there's something out there that's sort of elusive that they know that they want to be doing, but they don't know exactly what it is. And just helping to find that clarity through coaching. So such a valuable tool that coaches do bring is helping to find that clarity and what that thing is.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, we learned about the vortex with Paul and Stacy Martino, and I have a wonderful little glass ball with a vortex that I keep on my desk. And as we are, what coaching does, like I feel like everybody's going to be on a journey. We're going to
Mhm.
journey because we're living and breathing. We're going to get results every day. We're making decisions every day. But what coaching I feel really is beautiful about, and what I experience as a client, is that it amplifies results in a more accelerated experience. Like you get those results faster and you can reach that and you can understand rather than beating yourself up, like, why am I not happy? Right?
Mhm.
I have everything I
Mhm.
want. And that's like me. I'm looking around, I got four beautiful kids, and then one ended up getting sick. I'm like, well, this is my journey now, right? Why am I
Mhm.
not happy? And that's the other thing is you can find happiness. That's the other thing that coaching does is like you can find that happiness even despite the stuck, the
Mhm.
frying pan, the tree in front of you. And that was another thing that was just like blew my mind open. And I didn't have to wait. I didn't have to wait for the condition to change. I
Mhm.
changed, and it
Mhm.
changes the condition around me. It's like,
Yeah.
and Paul always talked about what are we putting in the loop, right? I get to change my energetic vibrational frequency, how I'm showing up. And that changes the results. We as parents get to change who we're being. And that demonstrates it. And when it is now presenting that for our children, right? Presencing it for our
Mhm.
children and the people, any people, your work, your husband, um, the kids on the soccer team, we get to be who we would love to be, even if the conditions haven't changed yet. And that's the
Yeah.
magic of the technology. When you create the vision, I get that the mental faculty of memory, forward memory. I get to know what I am like in that vision. I get to bring that person now to the now, regardless of the situation. And it reminds me of a quote. I took this out from Viktor Frankl. I put it over here. And he's the author of Man's Search for Meaning. He was an Austrian neurologist, psychologist that was in a concentration camp and had everything taken away from him. 3 years, four different camps. And he says, everything can be taken from a person but one thing, the last of human freedom, to choose one's attitudes in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Like he had been stripped. He was keeping a manuscript and hiding it, and they discovered that, and he was brought in front of the head, I guess SS, and they shredded it, burned it, and then they discovered he still had his wedding ring on, and they took that, and he's like stripped down of everything. He's like, but you can't make me hate. You
Mhm.
can't make me think a certain way. And that's that power within us, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, it's beautiful. Anyway, I love
Yeah.
that quote. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, absolutely. The power of, just the one thing you always have is the and control of is what's in your own mind. So I love that. And I just wanted to go back to what you said just about sort of can change you can create or change the circumstances that you have and it or create joy regardless of the circumstances around you. And that is, exactly what you did, right? And as you described in your journey, you created that joy and happiness within yourself, regardless of what was going on. Your daughter was still having those health challenges. And after you made those shifts, your daughter healed. And so, how powerful. So I just wanted to, just go back and touch back on that because we sort of
Thank you.
came full circle with that conversation.
You did. And in the end, I healed too. Right.
Mm,
First, I healed. That's really what it is,
yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
healed. There was such a part of me that it was torn open, when you watch someone you love suffer and there's
Mm,
like nothing you can do. And that's a little bit of the coaching journey too. And it's in my bio, being in the Navy, and I was in the Navy and I retired out of the reserves ultimately. But you set an objective, you have a mission, and you have the mission and objective stepping stones, the goals. Like, how do you meet a goal? You have your objective. First A, then B, then D. And you can figure it out. There's an element of control you have. Well, relationship and health, I'm like, there's not a lot of control. You can't control another person, and you can't
mm,
always control your situation or your circumstance. So there was like, when you don't know how, it's like releasing that how.
mm,
And that disempowering question of like, why her, why me, this
mm,
victim, where you ask this question, why? That's like the victim. And it's like, okay, well, I know that. And, Paul and Stacey were great with that. Like, it's personal responsibility. What can you do? How can you move forward in the next step? But I'm not focused on how it's happening, the experience is happening. I'm focused on what I would love and who
mm.
I want to be. And it does create a ripple to all those around us. It's really
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it is beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I do want to start to wrap up. We've had such a great conversation, covered a lot of topics, and learned so much about your journey and what you do. So thank you again for sharing all that. But before we leave, I'm just going to open it up. Do you have any final message for our audience today? Anything else that you'd like to put out into the world?
I love another quote if I can share this, and I do it in my vision workshop. So and on my business is Take the Helm Coaching, and I really, really appreciate you allowing me this avenue to have this conversation and to bring this to so many other people. So thank you so much, Amanda. There is a quote from Howard Thurman, who was one of Martin Luther King's mentors, and he says, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and go do it. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive." And that's when we get
Wow.
to do what we would love. What would I love? So,
Wow.
yeah,
I love that. Wow. So powerful. Thank you.
thank you so much, Amanda.
Yeah. And again, thank you again for being on with me. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. I've loved it so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for what you're doing. I really appreciate it.
I invite you to subscribe to the Embrace Balance Discover Joy podcast and join our community. If you feel inspired by what you hear, please leave a review and share this podcast with others who might benefit. And remember, it's never too late to embrace balance and discover joy in your life. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes filled with inspiring stories and valuable insights. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourself.